In this video, we're going to be discussing a podcast that Jordan Peterson did with leftist Destiny. And for you guys out there who don't know who Destiny is, here's a short, quick recap of the most important thing you need to know about this guy.
The internet's biggest proponents of open relationships, Destiny and Mel, have broken up. Their open marriage, not relationship, marriage, open marriage, has ended after Mel ran off to Sweden with another man. Destiny's wife, Melina, who he's in an open relationship with, reportedly ran off with a man in Sweden. This is Destiny. He's a huge streamer.
Yep, that's an interesting thing that most of you needed to know about this man. But let's get right into the interview.
Vanished.
Is it not possible that maybe people looked and they said, hey, if all the governments, all the institutions, all the schools, all the private companies across all the countries around the world are saying the same thing, maybe it is the case that this vaccine just helps. Is that not possible?
Oh, sure. That's sure. Of course it's possible, but that didn't mean it was right.
Well,
they used force. They used force.
We use force for all sorts of things in terms of public health.
We don't generally use force to invade people's bodies.
How long have vaccine mandates been a thing in Canada, the United States, and the entire world?
I don't think they should have been a thing.
That's great if you don't think they should have been, but when you say we don't generally use force, we absolutely use force. We've enforced vaccines for a long time. It's an important part of public health.
Fair enough. We did it on a scale and at a rate during the COVID pandemic, so-called pandemic, that was unparalleled. And the consequence of that was that we injected billions of people with an experimental, and it wasn't a bloody vaccine.
Of course
it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
Because it have a 100% success rate? You think it's a definition of vaccine? The whole point of the vaccine is to give your body a protein to train on so that your immune system works. Who cares if it's not the same? There's different types.
They used the word vaccine so that they didn't have to contend with the fact that it wasn't the same technology.
There are different types of vaccines that are different technologies.
Fine.
The mRNA vaccines is a type of vaccine technology.
Vaccines. Now this is vaccines.
No, it was like this and now it's like this.
No. It was like this and now it's like this. The mRNA technology was a radical, qualitative leap forward in technology. You can call it a vaccine if you want to, but it bears very little resemblance to any vaccine that went before that. And the reason it was called a vaccine was because vaccine was a brand name that had a track record of safety, and shoehorning it in that was one of the ways to make sure that people weren't terrified of the technology. And
I think the reason it's called a vaccine is because they're injecting you with something that's inoculating you against something in the future because it has proteins that resemble a virus that infects your immune system.
There are overlaps between the mRNA technologies and vaccines, to be sure. But they wouldn't have been put forward with the rate that they were put forward if they weren't a radical new technology. And it's bad in principle to inject billions of people with an untested new technology.
Isn't it also bad in principle for billions of people to get infected with a worldwide pandemic that initially was causing a decent number of deaths, a ton of complications, shutting down world economies?
Maybe it was. Maybe it was.
So shouldn't we be able to engage in that analysis and figure out, like, if we look at the
we're not engaging in the analysis.
No, because now we're talking about whether or not vaccines are even vaccines or not instead.
No, don't play that game. That is not what I was doing. I was making a very specific and careful case. The mRNA technology, by wide recognition, is an extraordinarily novel technology. And
that doesn't make it not a vaccine, though.
Well, okay, it's a radically transformed form of vaccine. I don't give a damn. That still makes it something so new that the potential danger of its mass administration was highly probable to be at least or more dangerous than the thing that it was supposed to protect against.
I know that's right. The jab was never tested effectively. And just to be totally transparent with you guys, I ended up getting the jab. But the only reason I did it was because I was moving to Japan and then I later moved to Thailand. But if I wasn't traveling like I was, I really wish I did not get the jab. And check this out. After I got the jab, I still ended up catching, twice. So it still didn't work. But I just want to let you guys know when the stuff hit the fan and I end up becoming a walker, that was the reason why.
And we are seeing that in the excess deaths.
Absolutely not saying. So are you implying now that the excess deaths were caused by the vaccines? Or
I don't bloody well know what they're caused by.
That's what you're implying now.
Well, look, if you're going to use Occam's razor, you're kind of stuck in an awkward place here.
I'm absolutely not sucking it out. This is the most administered vaccine in the or inoculation or whatever you prefer to call it, the history of all of mankind. Every single organization around the world is motivated to call this out if it was a bad thing. You don't think Russia or China would be screaming if Donald Trump or the United States warp sped through a vaccine that was having deleterious effects on populations all around the world? You don't think there wouldn't be some academic institution? You don't think there'd be more than a handful of doctors and Joe Rogan and some conservatives saying this vaccine might have been bad if it was the case that American companies working with companies in Europe and Germany especially, right, because that's where BioNTech is from, in order to create or manufacture a vaccine that was causing excess deaths all around the world? There are so many different people that we motivated to call this out. How do you explain the fact that no, it's a handful of people? Where are the governments calling it out? Where are the academic institutions calling it out? Where are the other private companies calling it out? Wouldn't you stand to make a killing if you were a private company in Europe and you could say, look, the mRNA vaccines for sure are causing all of these issues? Why wouldn't Putin? Why wouldn't Xi Jinping? Why wouldn't anybody else in the world call this out if it was as horrible as it was?
There are plenty of people attempting to call
nobody credible and no huge institution.
What do you make of the excess deaths? You haven't come up with a bloody hypothesis.
I don't even know if there are 20% at the excess deaths in Europe right now. If I had to guess off the top of my head, it's going to be, like you said, one might be lingering effects of an overwhelmed healthcare system. Another one might be deaths related to the war in Ukraine. Another one might be rising energy costs that have happened for a couple of reasons.
But it's absolutely impossible that any of it could be unintended consequences of a novel technology injected into billions of people.
I think that if excess, first of all, there aren't billions of people in Europe. So if there were excess deaths, I understand, but you're talking about excess deaths in Europe. I'm not aware of excess deaths that exist in other places that are completely and totally unaccounted for, where the only explanation could be the vaccine. I think if there were, I think more people would be talking about it.
Well, first of all, the number of people talking about something is not an indication of the scientific validity of a claim.
I agree with that, but for a vaccine,
then why are you using mass consensus as the determinant of what constitutes truth?
Because I think for something,
that's never been the case.
Because I think for
this guy Destiny is beyond beta male, because he sounds like a woman. He's only bringing up irrelevant detail. It sounds like Jordan Peterson is arguing with a woman. It always seems like they just want to talk fast over you. You can tell Destiny really respects JP's opinion here, because it seems like he's just throwing out a bunch of rehearsed stats. And once again, this guy's forgetting that talking fast doesn't make you smarter.
Because I think for something that was given to billions and billions of people, if this was something that was having a measurable effect on people, it would be impossible to cover it up or ignore it. Well, we wouldn't have to look at the one case brought up on a documentary. We wouldn't have to look at the one thing being talked about.
Then what do you make of the VAERS data? There's more negative side effects reported from the mRNA vaccines than there were reported for every single vaccine ever created since the dawn of time, and not by a small margin. So it's not just the excess deaths.
I agree.
It's the VAERS data.
What is VAERS data?
It's the database that until the COVID-19 pandemic emerged and we had the unfortunate consequence that there were so many side effects being reported, it was the gold standard for determining whether or not vaccines were safe. And now as soon as it started to misbehave on the mRNA vaccine front, we decided that we were going to doubt the validity of the VAERS reporting system.
Okay, the VAERS reporting system never been the gold standard for anything. VAERS reporting is just if you want to report that there is some issue that you have after getting a vaccine. That's it. I think it's vaccine adverse.
What the hell do you think it was set up for?
To report adverse events that happen after a vaccine.
Why?
To track and see if something was related to the vaccine.
Right.
So
why?
most people didn't even know VAERS existed until after the COVID vaccine. Once people know that it exists, of course more people are going to engage with it. But what happens
when
you submit a
noise.
report? No, it could be or it couldn't be. So what do? When a bunch of stuff
first of all, you might begin by suggesting that maybe it's not all noise.
Correct. So when all of these things are admitted to VAERS, what they do is, from there, they investigate. All you can do, all VAERS is I might go and get a vaccine, and maybe in 3 days ago, I got a headache. I'm going to go ahead and call my doctor and make this report. And they'll say, okay, well, it's an adverse event after vaccine. Doesn't mean the vaccine caused the headache. And now that more people know about this system than ever.
I'm saying that
VAERS is not the gold standard of determining if a vaccine is working or not.
What?
Compared to actual longitudinal, prospective, randomized controlled trial studies.
You mean like the ones they should have done to the goddamn vaccines?
Like the ones that they did do for the vaccines and they continue to do to this day. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
you really think that you're in a position to evaluate the scientific credibility of the trials for the vaccines, do you?
No, really? I don't. So I have to trust.
Then what are you doing?
I have to do.
I don't trust. I looked at the bloody data.
First of all, you have to trust third parties to some extent. When you go outside,
I don't have to trust.
Of course you do. You do every day. When you turn the keys in your car, you hope your engine doesn't explode. When you're drinking water, you hope that the public water or whatever tap or bottled water you got it out of isn't contaminated or poisoned with cholera.
I don't
when
do
you
that as a consequence of consensus.
No, you of course you do.
No, I don't. I do that as a consequence of observing multiple times that when I put the goddamn key in the ignition, the truck started.
Why do you know it's going to start the 50th or the 100th time? How many times do you
wear
the?
With me,
I'm
you know
not
perfectly
playing
well
Hume.
why.
You don't know if the denim in those jeans isn't leaking into your bloodstream. To some extent, we have to trust third-party institutions to make determination.
When they use force. How about that?
Especially when they use force. We trust the police officers. We trust the judicial systems.
We do. We on the left trust the police.
To some extent, do we? If somebody's breaking into your house, who do you call?
Them.
I'm not a defunder, but if somebody's breaking into your house, you can be the most defund person in the world. Who are you going to call? Are you going to call your neighbor? Are you going to call Joe Biden? Are you going to call Obama? Are you going to call the Black Panthers? You're going to call the cops.
Okay, so tell me this. Tell me this then, because the core issue here is use of force as far as I'm concerned. You know, we examined some.
I think this guy, Destiny, really need to go to a therapist. You can see the way he was sitting there talking to JP that this man probably need to be on some type of medication, and he really need to talk to a therapist, especially after going through that episode with his ex-wife. First off, guys, I must say this man, Destiny here, is very arrogant to try to go exercise his wits with a guy like Jordan Peterson.
That's another thing where I'm not sure if people actually care about gigantism or if they're using it as a proxy for other things that they don't like. Like, I could totally imagine
I care about it.
Sure, yeah, you might. Yeah, sorry. It just meant in general.
That's okay.
Because like I could imagine somebody saying that like they don't trust like a large government, they think there's too much, prone to tyranny or something like that, but also be supportive of an institution like the Catholic Church, which is literally, one guy who has a direct line to God.
But they can't tax.
Well, I mean, and
they don't have a military. They can't conscript you.
True,
right?
Yeah.
And they can't throw you in jail.
That is true.
Man, this is vicious watching JP destroy this young, pathetic woman. I mean, man. But I enjoy watching videos of Destiny getting humbled. And that's all I got in this video. You guys drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about Destiny getting demolished by Jordan Peterson in this podcast interview. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.